This is Carly Fiorina, if you guys don't recognize her. And this dumb broad was responsible for the loss of 10,000 jobs at Hewlett Packard, and she single-handedly took that company down to where it almost didn't survive. And then after she blew the company up, she gets a golden parachute out of the place where people are on the street. Yeah, great business pedigree. Anyway, she now has joined the Ted Cruz family. Now, granted, she dogged this guy out, but politics make strange bedfellows, and I'm wondering what she got promised to come out in behalf of Ted Cruz. So anyway, I'm going to play this clip, then I'm going to pause it so you can take your time in reading the exact statement that she made about Ted Cruz.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are two sides of the same coin. They're not going to reform the system. They are the system.
That was former presidential candidate Carly Fiorina yesterday slamming Donald Trump during her endorsement of Senator Ted Cruz. And joining me now by phone is the former candidate herself, former Hewlett Packard CEO and Republican presidential candidate, as we just said. Carly Fiorina is with us. Thank you for taking a moment out and being with us by phone.
It's my pleasure, Kate. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm in Florida, and weather couldn't be better here.
Yes,
let me ask you, though.
Florida beats Iowa in January and New Hampshire.
It does.
For sure.
It does. No offense to them, but it does. You have had some fairly unkind words for Ted Cruz in the past. In January, you said, quote, Ted Cruz is just like any other politician. He says one thing in Manhattan, he says another thing in Iowa, he says whatever he needs to say to get elected, and then he's going to do as he pleases. Are you doing the same thing by endorsing him now?
No, and I know this is the game that gets played here when an endorsement happens. Look, before I ever had a conversation with Ted Cruz of any length at all to discuss an endorsement or anything else, I went into the voting booth in the Virginia primary. And I had to think long and hard about who to vote for. It would have been tempting to check the box for myself. It's kind of cool to see your name on a presidential ballot. But I had to think long and hard about why I ran for president. I ran for president because I think the system actually has to be reformed. There's only one guy left in the race who actually has challenged the status quo. That's Ted Cruz, and he has the enemies to prove it. I think it's important that we have a conservative in the White House because conservative principles are about ending the concentration of power, among other things. And we have too much power, too much economic power and too much political power concentrated in the hands of too few. And Republicans and Democrats alike have presided over that concentration of power. The system that I referred to in that little clip you played, the system is personified by Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz can beat Donald Trump. He's the only guy who has. And the system needs to be challenged.
Well, she's got her talking points down pretty well, but she doesn't know what the definition of conservative is versus the definition of progressive is. A conservative wants to maintain the status quo. They want to conserve. If they have to change, they want extreme slow change, while a progressive wants rapid change. They want radical change. Now, she basically is doing what all politicians do. She's hitching her wagon to somebody that she thinks has a chance for power. And it's the conservatives who want to maintain the current power structure, whereas the progressives want to change it. So she's full of shit.
Let me ask you, you used to work with John McCain. He famously once called Ted Cruz a wacko bird. I'm sure you remember that. He questioned Cruz's eligibility for president. I guess my question is, if Ted Cruz is so disliked by so many, why support him, and how do you see him going all the way?
Well, it's interesting. I have challenged the system all my life. That's what leadership is. You challenge the status quo. That's what it takes to go from secretary to CEO.
So that would be called being progressive if you're challenging the system. not staying within the system, conserving the system. So again, she doesn't know what a conservative is versus what a progressive is. And Ted Cruz, she's right about one thing. He damn sure is a conservative. He's a conservative across the board, whether it's legislatively or religiously or any other type of conservatism that you can think of. And she's just trying to hitch her wagon again to what I think she perceives as someone who is going to be one of the power brokers.
And so I know from personal experience that when you challenge a system, when you challenge the status quo, you do more than ruffle feathers. You make enemies. It's part of the price. It's why most people won't challenge the system. It's why most people will go along to get along, because it's hard to make enemies. Ted Cruz has made enemies. There is no question. But he has also stayed true to his principles throughout. And by the way, he's a guy in this race, while others have gotten down in the gutter with Donald Trump and talked about body paint and, body parts and spray tans, Ted Cruz has stayed on the issues, stayed on the substance, and presented extremely substantive policy proposals of his own.
You mentioned Donald Trump. Obviously, you're not a big fan. I don't know whether, Ms. Fiorina, you've had a chance to see some disturbing video that's come to light today. It's from a rally last night in North Carolina. It shows a young black protester who had disrupted things. He's being escorted out of a Trump rally last night, and as he's being escorted out, he gets punched in the face by an older white gentleman who was later arrested. I guess I just wonder whether you are worried about the state of, I don't even know what to call it, the animosity that we see and the violence, frankly, that we see at some of these Trump events.
Well, I'm very worried about the divisive nature of our political dialogue in general. And yes, I worry about that. It's why when Donald Trump announced his candidacy, I said, and got a lot of criticism for it, I said he doesn't represent me and he doesn't represent my party. This nation is divided. And frankly, Democrats have contributed to that as well. I mean, it's not helpful when Hillary Clinton, or for that matter, President Obama, say it's okay for protesters to talk about, frying pigs like bacon, and they don't really comment at all.
Last time I checked, I thought that was freedom of speech. And these Republicans love bringing that particular situation up. But they failed to mention that there were police officers at that Minnesota march that were saying the same thing. So if it was all that demagogic, why were police officers saying the same thing and laughing? But no, they want to take some things out of context. Nobody is threatening bodily harm. People were just chanting. But in this particular case, people are actually becoming physical, and she can't see the video, but she wants to downplay the subject that was brought up.
When police officers are assassinated in their cars, there's a lot of divisive rhetoric. And so, yes, I'm concerned about divisive rhetoric wherever it happens. I'm concerned when people are trafficking in hate and trafficking in fear. Ted Cruz has always talked about substantive policy proposals, and I think that's what this election needs to be about, because there's a really big difference between progressive ideas and conservative ideas. And I think it's only conservative ideas that are going to really challenge the status quo now.
See, and that's a bunch of crap. It's conservative ideas never challenge the status quo. It's the progressive ideas that challenge the status quo. So she needs to go grab a dictionary and look up the definitions, because she's like totally wrong.
Fiorina, thank you for your time. Appreciate you joining us by phone today.
Thanks, Kate.
It is